climate meeting or whatever they had, that clown show in the UAE, and John Kerry calls for the elimination of all coal plants in America, even though China is building a coal plant a month with no filters and no restrictions. Somehow, if we get out of the coal business, that's going to mean we're not going to all die. You're a coal-producing state in Montana. John Tester, running for re-election, Democrat senator. Well, how does he reconcile this, and how can Montanans be all right with eliminating one of their major industries?
They can't. There's been so many studies done, John. By the way, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. There's been so many studies done on the economic impact, the negative economic impact it would have to the whole state of Montana by shutting this coal production down, and not just the coal production, but the energy production that is produced as a direct result of it. It would be crippling to the state. And quite frankly, John, this is the other thing that these people don't seem to recognize. It would cripple the entire power grid across the nation. 2 years ago, in February of 22, so just about 2 years ago, we had this incredible cold front plunge down from the Arctic all the way to the Texas border. And it was so cold that, I mean, it was like 20 below, which is a typical, February afternoon for Montana. But those temperatures went farther down into the Midwest and all the way down to Texas. It stopped the wind turbines from turning. The ones where they finally could function because the temperatures were a little higher, they weren't able to function because they were iced over, just like the wing on your jet gets iced over and it will not fly. That's how these wind turbines work. And they actually had a very near collapse of the power grid. We had the electric co-ops, because of the rural areas. Typically, they have all these co-ops that service the smaller areas, rolling the co-ops across the nation through the Midwest area that have these shared agreements. We're having rolling blackouts. Now, I'll tell you something. In California, you have a rolling blackout, and it's 75, 85, even 90 degrees in the summertime. You can survive that. When it's 20 below and you're up in Montana, an hour of no power is truly life-threatening. This is disastrous. And for John Kerry and these people who live on systems that they can provide for themselves even when the rest of the power grid goes down, they still are putting the national security at risk. They still are putting all the manufacturing base at risk, and they're causing major problems across the country.
Matt Rosendale with us, Congressman, Montana. Congressman, let's go to what you just talked about, the potential lack of energy here. Do they have they presented any alternative plan for what you just laid out? Or is it just get rid of coal, get rid of drilling, get rid of fracking, and if you freeze to death, you're just collateral damage for the common good?
Oh, no, they've got a plan. Unicorns and rainbows. It all sounds fabulous, man. I'll tell you, What's wrong, John? Don't you believe in these kinds of things? It's pitiful is what it is. I sit in the Natural Resource Committee on a weekly basis, and my colleagues across the aisle, not only do they refuse to recognize that we must have this power, again, just to sustain life as we know it, but how it would impact our manufacturing base. One of the main inputs for manufacturing is energy consumption. And when you start taking your energy and it becomes unreliable and it becomes much, much more expensive to produce, then manufacturing starts looking at other places. So they start driving that overseas. The other thing that they refuse to acknowledge is that if they truly believed in everything that they were talking about, they would make it easier for us to produce the resources here domestically that are necessary to even try to produce the renewable energy. I personally don't see, based on the math that's been presented to me, how you're going to be able to replace your natural gas and your coal-fired plants with a bunch of wind and solar energy, because they are intermittent, and the coal and natural gas facilities are on demand 24/7, 365 days a year, reliable, dependable, affordable, predictable, all of these things that these intermittent means of energy just are not. And when you won't even allow us to produce the minerals that is necessary here domestically to even build those renewable energy products, all you're doing is forcing all of this overseas where they do it not environmentally sound. They don't have nearly the labor standards that we do. We've had discussions about the slave labor, forcing children into these facilities. It is absolutely terrible, and they refuse to acknowledge it, and they just continue to ignore it.